By the age of 30, I had 7 companies and I was very successful financially. One night I was driving home and my neck was completely seized up, and I thought, if I carry on like this, I'm going to kill myself. I needed to find some way of relaxing, some way of getting rid of all the stress. So I went along to an introductory talk on meditation. I wasn't convinced. A month later I went back and saw the same person give the same speech, and I still wasn't convinced. But the businessman in me said, look, you're a businessman, this is an investment, so why don't you invest your money and see what return you get? Which was a pretty stupid way of approaching it, but that's what I did, and I learned to transcendental meditation. The effects for me were instantaneous and they were incredible. I just felt as though all the weight of the world had lifted from my shoulders. It was wonderful. I was so in love with meditation, I wanted to join a local meditation group, which I did in the Wyre Forest. And over a period of time, I suddenly started having this little voice at the back of my head saying something about, you should be doing some healing. And I just ignored it, and it just was persistent. And then one day, the leader of the meditation group said, we're going to turn this group into a healing group. I thought, well, there you go. And so I carried on, and I joined that group, and so once a week I go to my meditation circle, and then another night of the week we have a walk-in centre in Kidderminster where there's a group of us, and we offer our services completely free. In fact, we make a donation. People can walk in off the street, and we give them about 10-15 minutes of spiritual healing. One day I came home, my wife said to me, there's an article in the newspaper, you've got to read it. And I said, yes, and she said, no, read it now. And I read this article, and it was all about SHEN Therapy. And I put the paper down, I said, very interesting. And my wife said, you've got to do it. I said, well, yes, okay. She said, no, you've got to do it, like, right now. You've got to phone them up. So I did, and I went away on a workshop. That was my first introduction. And it was just amazing, and I fell completely in love with SHEN. It had a completely scientific explanation as to how it worked, and I thought it was wonderful. However, I still had my business, so I became an intern, and whilst the internship program would normally last about 18 months, it took me 7 years because I found it difficult to fit the two in. Cutting a long story short, I became a fully certified SHEN therapist about 13 years ago or something like that. I then became a SHEN instructor, and I also am a vice president and trustee of the International SHEN Therapy Association, and I'm editor of the SHEN Touch newsletter, which goes out to the worldwide SHEN community.
Do you ever have any time for Tony?
Yes, I do. In fact, I make certain that one night a week I have a SHEN swap. Fortunately, it's a neighbour of mine. So I have an hour on the SHEN table, and then we swap, and that person has an hour on the table. And I always feel so much better afterwards. I'm very, very careful about ensuring that I get the balance right between work and other things. So, for example, I still have a residual interest in my business, which I subsequently sold. I then have other interests as well, but primarily the focus of what I do now is SHEN, and I do that simply because I just love it. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life.